What is happening, and welcome to another four-wheel drive talk episode. And today we're going to be addressing one of those questions that I've gotten over and over again, especially when I'm out in the field and so forth, and that is gas versus propane generators and why I use the one that I use as much as I do. Now, as many of you know, I've used both gas-powered generators and also propane-powered generators for my overlanding adventures, and because of that, I've gotten quite a number of questions. As I mentioned a moment ago, which one is best? And that's a pretty loaded question. Well, the answer is it's actually more complicated because both have really advantages and also disadvantages. In some cases, a gas-powered generator could be the best bet. In other cases, a propane-powered generator is a better fit. So in today's video, I'm going to break down the pros and cons of each and explain my experiences of using both of these in overlanding situations, and I'm going to give you my pick, which is the type of generator that is best, or at least for my situation. But first, friends, look, we put videos like this together to help you, whether it's be getting out there and enjoying your overlanding off-roading better, or just prepare you for a purchase. If you find some value with this video, if we help you in any way, do me a favor. There's that whole YouTube algorithm that really digs it when you hit that like button. And frankly speaking, so do we as well. So that said, my friends, thank you very much, and pull up a seat in. Let's go. All right, let's start exploring some of the advantages and disadvantages of gas generators. And also, I feel it's necessary to point out here, this is where I have most of my experience, is certainly on the gas generators. I've had gas generators since I was a kid, or with my father, my grandfather had various different gas generators. And then over the years, I've had a number of different Hondas. I've had a number of different Generacs. This is a Generac IQ 3500. Now, one thing I will say here is these things, we're talking about pros right now, these things can be super powerful. So for example, the Generac IQ 3500, this thing puts out 3,500 starting watts and 3,000 running watts. Now, obviously, not all gas generators are that powerful, though. Another thing that I've noticed with gas generators is there's a huge power selection for as little as 1,000 watts all the way up to 12,000 watts or even more to fit your specific needs. And one of the, again, we're talking about pros with a gas generator. Fuel is easy available. You can find it 24/7 to fill up your gas canister when you're filling up your vehicle, assuming you have a gas-powered vehicle. Well, either if you're diesel, you're still pulling the same gas station. But if you're electric, I guess that doesn't really fall into suit here. But anyways, it's a proven technology. Gas generators have been around for a very long time, and companies like, Honda, Yamaha, Generac have built reputations for having reliable and dependable gas generators. And another thing to point out here, gas-powered generators can be very budget-friendly. Hell, you can buy a off-brand 2,000 watt gas generator for less than a 1,000 watt propane generator. And just to be clear, not that I would recommend that you buy a no-name generator. Honestly, that's just asking for a ton of problems, but they are available. Now let's shift gears and talk about some of the downsides, though. These things can be very messy. So between fuel spills and exhaust fumes, these generators can be just very messy and very smelly. And, speaking of which, now while this thing is not running right now, it is so stinking hot outside. It's nearly, it's 100, okay, it was 100 degrees a moment ago. It's 99 degrees outside. It is stinking hot. You may be asking, why do I have these big ass generators, or at least specifically this one, inside my studio on the second floor, which I had to carry this thing up. When you find out the weight of this thing, you'll appreciate, or you get the joke out of that. But why these are in here is because my cameras, well, it's so hot outside. Forget about my comfort. My cameras are prone to overheating, especially my Canon R5 there. It's a not the most forgiving when the heat is really acting up. So hence the reason I decided to lug up these. This thing's light as hell, but this thing right here, as you'll find out, this thing's over 100 pounds. And so carrying this thing up on a second story rather, is no joke. But we're talking about smell. My office, you dare to light anything in here, it would probably light up because it smells like gas in here. Anyways, getting back over to the cons here, they can be very big. Now, this Generac here weighs over 100 pounds. Actually, it's 109 pounds, and that's not including the fuel that's inside this thing right here. And this thing takes up a ton of space in the bed of my truck, and that's a very difficult thing to maneuver around in there, or it's actually quite difficult to maneuver around in there. That's actually one of the things, as you'll find out here momentarily. This thing right here, honestly, I've only brought this thing out a couple times. Now, this is a big generator. You're not gonna, I mean, unless you have like an RV or, I mean, even still space, whether you're going out in an RV, a fifth wheel, or, you know, a turtleback expedition trailer like what I have, your number one commodity is space. You know, the storage space that you have, and something like this, honestly, is just not practical. But anyway, it takes up quite a bit of space here. Now, another thing to keep in mind here, gas generators are not future-proof. And let me expound on that. Now, I live in California, and California has banned the sale of new gas generators starting in 2028. And before you say, well, that's California, well, look at history. How many times have other states slowly started to follow what California does? And we know that's going to happen. And, you know, you just need further proof. Look at the evolution of what we're seeing happening with fossil fuels right now with electric cars. And I know that's a touchy subject for a lot of folks out there. But sooner or later, you know, we're going to see more kind of emission restrictions on small engines and all that other fun stuff. So propane, which actually, I won't even get to that. So the gas is just not future-proof. And also something to note, so therefore somebody doesn't go mentioning it down in the comments there. What's that ban that's taking place with California? That is on the sale of new generators. So if you have an existing one, you know, you can keep that. But I'm guessing what the state will do sooner or later is just start crunching on the gas, you know, raising the taxes on fuel prices, and, you know, jacking things up further with regard to that, making it more costly to run things like this. Now, I'll close off with the big one here. Gasoline can go bad in a matter of a few weeks. Now, this requires the need to get fresh gas pretty consistently, and not to mention that you need to bleed the gas out of your generator or problems will arise. And friends, I'm talking from experience here. So the fact of the matter is, this generator, up until a few days ago, hadn't been started in about 4 months. Now, I had fuel in there. Now, if many of you know small engines, you know exactly where I'm leaning with this here. I go to start it because I try to keep the fluids moving around in it, and it wouldn't start. So I bring it down to Parkway Lawnmowers down in Lake Forest. So these guys, they rebuild motors, mowers, generators, weed whackers, you know, basically any sort of small gas engines. These guys are just quite masters at it. So Balthazar down there, who was my contact, and he was just an absolute rock star. He was sharing with me a lot about these engines. So you cannot keep gas in it for over a month, and it can really start mucking up things really fast. He was sharing with me photos of just carburetors and some of the damage that gas does when left in these things. And so he basically shared with me one of two things was going to take place. Either they could rebuild the carburetor, so if we're lucky, we're going to be good to go there. I need to open up the door here. Not a joke. The gas fumes on this is beginning to get to me here. So we may hear the air conditioning, and so if you do, I do apologize, but it's either that or me huffing in this here, and I'm probably going to pass out here momentarily. So at least the door open and get some fresh air in here. But anyway, so he was sharing with me that if we're lucky, they can rebuild the carburetor and we'll be good to go on this. Otherwise, they did order a new carburetor for this thing, and then we just need to swap it out. In many cases, you know, they shared with me that carburetors or certain, you know, components inside of these things are just so far gone because the gas just really does that much damage. And so the best course of action is just simply replacing the parts. But we did luck out, and so literally overnight, their guy over there rebuilt the carburetor and it fired up just fantastic and so forth. So, and I'm bringing a point here. This is also something you need to keep in mind. If you're buying a generator like this, And I think this is one of the big cons that a lot of people overlook. If you're buying something like this in California, we had a notice that came over our phones, an emergency notice to turn back our AC and all this other fun stuff, that the power grid is under strain, and that we could see blackouts and so forth. If you're buying a generator with the intent of a case of emergency break glass, I think a lot of people out there may have it full of gas, thinking that, hey, good, I'm covered for an emergency. And then come time of the emergency, their generator is not going to start because the gas is gone bad if they didn't replace it within, after 30 days of putting it in there. So that's something that you have to keep in mind as well. And I think is a big con with regards to a gas generator. You have to keep fresh gas around where you live and not inside of this. Otherwise, you need to empty this out and flush the system every 30 days or so to keep that gas from getting mucked up in there. So anyways, it's a bit of a mixed bag with gasoline generators, but what about propane generators? Now, with the gas generator out of the way, let's dive into some of the benefits of a propane generator. And if you aren't familiar with this, or you've seen some of my previous videos, this is a 1,000 watt ALP propane generator. So this is 1,000 running watts, or I'm sorry, this is 1,000 starting watts, and it's 850 running watts. I've had this thing for 2 years, and actually the camera's not picking this up, but this thing is absolutely filthy because it's always in my truck. Now, again, diving into some of the benefits with this, you don't have to worry about fuel spills and smells. The safety valve on the propane tanks absolutely eliminate the possibility of fuel spillage. Now, the propane has virtually endless shelf life, so if you store it properly and protect it from the elements, unlike gas, propane can sit on a shelf for years and years. Now, propane is also a cleaner burning fuel than gasoline. So the benefit of that is you can get the power that you need when you're overlanding while also being environmentally friendly. Now, also propane generators tend to be much smaller and a little bit more portable than gas counterparts. Now, my ALP 1,000 watt propane generator here weighs just 33 pounds. Now, a moment ago, I was talking about lugging this thing up here. This is 109, not including the fuel that's inside of this thing. 33 pounds. This thing is a absolute breeze. Now, this is also one of the reasons that a moment ago I shared with you. I've owned quite a handful of Honda generators over the years. I've owned a handful of the Generacs and so forth. Even the 1,000 watt Hondas and so forth, which are relatively smaller than what we see right here. The Honda, I think, was around 29 pounds without fuel, and then you add the fuel, that's about 35 pounds or so, 35, 36 pounds or something like that. But the point being, with this thing right here, this thing is so darn small, which makes it a breeze. It's always in my truck, and it's actually right in the back side, so it's always ready for me to grab that now. Propane generators are also less expensive to run. Now, if my math is incorrect here, somebody correct me down below. But one of the things I started calculating with this here is these ALP generators, when run on eco mode, will run on a 20-pound tank for 60 hours. So what I did was, I'm not going to base it off of this thing right here because it's not apples to apples. So my old 1,000 watt Honda generator, I'm going to compare it to that. That thing the tank was 0.6 gallons. And that thing on eco mode would run for 6.8 hours. So what I did was I took the 6.8, divided it into the 60 hours that you get off of a single run 20-pound tank. Then I multiplied that by fuel here, which is 5.60 a gallon. And then I multiplied that by 0.6 gallons, which is the size of the tank on the Honda. So per 60 hours of a Honda 1,000 watt generator, it would cost $29.64 to run it for every 60 hours. Now, my 20-pound tank that I run this thing on, I can go down to the Shell station, not the Shell station, the 76 station down in the corner here. I can get that filled up for just a little bit less than 19 bucks. It's actually like $18.47. So that is nearly a $10 difference. So about a third less of a cost there. That's a significant difference. But like gas generators, there are downsides, and actually, I sat on this one for a little while. The only downside that I could think of with regards to the propane generator is you have limited power options. A moment ago we spoke about there's like a zillion different sizes that you can get a gas generator. With the propane side of it here, again, we're talking 100% propane generators. There's not as many sizes, and so you don't get that insane variation of power availability that you can with the gas. Now that said, now ELP generators, this is a 1,000 watt. You can actually run two of these in parallel. So while I've never needed more than one myself, you can actually run these in parallel, and these are 850 running watts. And so by running them in parallel, a couple of them, you're actually now up to 1,700 watts. So, but that was the only negative that I can really, the downside that I can think of. I really think these sort of generators are quite the home run over the gas-powered generators. And again, I still own gas generators. I just don't use them. So as you can see, both types of generators have both positives and negatives. And I know what you're saying.
Alex, which one is the best?
Well, to answer that, I'm going to share with you kind of just a little rundown and some real world kind of experiences with each of these generators. From an ease of use standpoint, man, I gotta go with the ELP. The lack of the fumes, the fussing with the fuel rather, sloshing around and all that other stuff that I mentioned earlier, this thing is just a clear winner. And again, not just with this big generator right here, even my 1,000, my smaller generators or gas generators that I had in the past. Now, applications for each of these. Now, look, a moment ago I gave you the example of we received a warning over our phones for the power consumption that California is going through right now. You're not going to buy something like this as a replace your energy in your house. It's just not gonna have the punch. Now you can probably get away with running two of these in parallel, but realistically something like this, which is a big pig. But again, most of you may be picking up a generator because you're going out overlanding. And that being the case, this is the clear winner right here. This generator right here, and it's funny because I did a video, I think it was a 24 or 18-month review. I forget what it was there. I did of this thing here, and I tried to think of things where it actually failed. I've never had this thing fail. Now, most of the time, I'm charging the batteries. I have a Turtleback Expedition trailer that has two 100 amp hour lithium batteries in there. So I will often use this thing if the sun's not available to charge up my batteries. I'll use this out in the field to charge up my batteries. I've run small AC units off of this. I've used this religiously as a case of emergency break glass during cold weather camping, where if I had, you may recall a few years back, I did a review of a Chinese diesel heater, which failed 2 a.m. in the morning, froze my ass off. It had to wake up, fire up this thing to turn on a small electric heater. And then charging just various things around the camp. This thing's an absolute rock star. And you can actually charge, if you're in an emergency situation and you need to charge your vehicle or the battery, you can actually do that or use that to jumpstart your vehicle. So there's just so many uses. And best of all, again, it is so light. This thing is only 33 pounds. So I absolutely love these things. Now, problems that have come up with both of these here. In all reality, I've had no problems with this at all. Nothing, not at all. This thing, the only problem that I had with it is the battery is dead right now, and that's from sitting. And even after I ran it for a little bit there, it didn't seem to charge it up. So I think I got to get a new battery for that. And then also because I left the fuel sitting there for 4 months and didn't start the thing up, so I had to have the carburetor built on this. And this particular generator right here, this thing maybe has 10 hours on it. So the fact that I had to have it rebuilt the carburetor already, and granted, it was only $125, I think I did, or that they charged me down there, which was an absolute steal because they were blazing fast. But still, slight problems with this one. No problems on this one. So in all reality, if I needed a generator that was going to power my house, I don't know why I was holding my hand up there, but anyways, if I needed something that was going to power my entire house, yeah, something like this could be more appropriate. But again, we're talking about overlanding off-road. This is by a substantial amount one of the best recommendations and one of the best assets in my rig. So in my opinion, if you want to know which one is the best, if you're talking overlanding off-road, go propane. But something also to consider, as I said before, the best generator really depends on your needs. So if you have a fifth wheel or a RV, my little 1,000-watt propane generator might not be the best tool for you. You need a little bit more power. Again, you can get away with running 2 of these things in parallel to bump yourself up to 1,700 watts. But that's, you know, if you're looking for a standalone single unit, this might not be the best option. If you have a large amount of power needs if you have a large amount of demand for power, this might not be the best if you're looking for a single unit. You'll have to go with something gas where you have a little bit more kind of scalable options. But if you're like me and have a small off-road trailer or you tent camp, a 1,000-watt propane generator like this Alp is a fantastic option. So going back to this, when I first learned of the propane generator, honestly, I was a little skeptical on this here because for under $500, come on. You know, I didn't know really much about propane generators at the time, but I decided to give it a go, and man, you know, this thing really punches way out of its weight class. You know, it's cleaner to burn, it's quiet. The damn thing is like 52 decibels, something like that. Crazy portable, more than enough power, as I shared a moment ago, to power anything in my turtleback and anything that I've thrown at it. And you can use different size fuel tanks with this, really depending upon your needs. I have a 5, a 10, and of course the 20. You pretty much use this with the 20. I'll use the others in case of emergency break glass. But anyways, guys, the ultimate purpose of this video is to help inform you about generator options and really shed some light on why each type of generator might or might not be a good fit for your needs. As always, before you go investing into gear, do the necessary research about brands, fuel types, wattage, and so forth. That way you end up with a generator that you can use for your adventures for years and years to come. Now what I'll do is I'll link to my generators in the description below so you can learn a little bit more about each one of these things. Now this is usually where I kind of outline the details of our current giveaway, but that ended last week, and the next one will be announced sometime later on this week with our new 4-wheel drive talk episode. So stay tuned to the channel for our announcement of our winners and details of our next giveaway. Well, friends, this was another fun video to put together. Now it's that time of the video where honestly, I want to get especially this one out of here because my office here really reeks of gas. So it's that time of the video where I'm going to shut off my camera. But before I do, hey, look, if you found some value with this video, do me a favor, hit that like button down below. If you're currently not subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button. And last but not least, so therefore you don't miss a single video like the one that you just watched, make sure you hit that bell so therefore YouTube does its whole notification thing every time that we have a new video that come out. But that said, friends, I'm going to be jumping out of here. Well, actually, no, I'm getting that out of here, and then I'll come back up here to finish up some work. But anyways, you get the point. I'm going to be shutting off my cameras. So you get out there, stay healthy, and find your adventure.